I'm going to share how I began my spiritual journey. I was 23 years old, living my life like it was golden, partying from Friday to Sunday night every week, go to work. It was just not a care in the world, and I really didn't even care how, I interacted with people. I did what I wanted to do, made the money I didn't want, all of that. I became sick, and it took them 6 months to figure out why I was so sick. I had contracted serum hepatitis through some dental work, and they couldn't figure it out. I kept going to the emergency. They couldn't figure out what was wrong with me. And finally, I went to my gynecologist of all things, because every girl has to have one. And they're the ones that gave me the test and that figured out what was wrong with me. By the time they figured it out, I was in the third stages of the illness, and that's where you just kind of sleep away because the liver is so damaged and there's so much poison in your system. And because it is a liver disease and the liver is the filter of the body, there's no medication at that time that they could give me. But my mother, and all of her knowledge, when they took me to the hospital, I remember hearing the doctor say to my family, if you know how to pray, you better pray, because there's nothing we can do for her. But my mother loved me through this situation. I was in the hospital for probably about 13, 14 days, and they were scheduling me for a liver biopsy because nothing was changing, and I was really scared, because I didn't want that procedure. But the other thing that was happening to me, every night I would dreams about my life and how I had lived it. And all the way to when I was a little baby, I would have dreams, and I would ask my mom about them. And she was just startled. How could you know that? You were only 8 months old, you were 5 months old, you were 11 months old. How did you know these things? I said, I dreamed them. And then one night, I didn't dream. I don't remember anything about that night. I remember going to bed and I was humming a song, but I was awakened the next morning by the sun shining through my window. And it was such a startling event. I jumped out of the bed and ran to the window, and I looked out because intellectually I knew that was the sun, but it was as if I'd never seen it before. I knew there were trees, but I was so excited because I'd never seen them before. And the grass, never seen it before. Just all these things that I had an intellectual knowledge of, but had not seen them before. And the other part of it was the memories of prior to that. They weren't mine. I couldn't remember experiencing them, but I could look in on them as if I was looking in on someone else's life. And I remember that day when the doctor came in, I was just adamant, I'm going home, I'm healed. And he's like, no, I don't think so. He said, you're still very sick. I said, I'm not sick anymore. I promise, let me go home. And I was so adamant and so irritated because they wouldn't let me go home. He said, wait, I'll make a deal with you. He said, if you gain 5 pounds and some of the bile, which is the poison that was in my system, backs out of your system, I'll let you go home. The next day when he came in, I had gained the 5 pounds and all of the poison had backed out of my system. And the doctor looked at me and said, what is going on? I've never seen this before. I said, I don't care, I'm ready to go. And so he had to discharge me. That going to death's door in that event let me know there was a greater power than me. Prior to that, I was raised in a Pentecostal family. They kept trying to save me. I couldn't get with it. I didn't understand what they was doing. They'd be screaming and hollering and jumping. I'm like, what is they feeling? It didn't register in my mind. And I had no desire to honor the God they were serving because I knew I was bad and he could just wipe me out anytime because I was always doing something. So I didn't want to serve that God. I didn't like what they were saying about that. So this event put me solidly on a path of exploration to understand what was that greater power. I studied all the religions that I could get my hands on. I would walk into bookstores and books would fall off the shelf in front of me. I knew, okay, I need to read this. I remember when I finally went back to work, a woman came to me and she had a brown paper bag and there was a book in it. And she said, I was told to give you this book. Now, I didn't even know this woman, but she said, I was told to give you this book. And the book was 3 Magic Words by U.S. Anderson. And it was one of the most amazing books. And it's the first time I ever heard the concept, you are God. That was the three magic words, but they don't come until the end of the book. And I remember buying and sharing that book with as many people as I could. But that was my beginning. And the other thing that was really strange, it was like I could think of something that I desired, it would happen. And it was like, this is really weird. Or I wanted to buy something or acquire something, I would just focus or put a picture on my wall and focus on it. Through all of the reading and all of the learning, I began to understand how to use my inner power. And I've stayed on that path. There's been times I've deviated, but I never lost my connection. I mean, everything I've been doing is just improving, just adding, just more understanding. So I had to go a couple more times to death's door, but that was the most significant because it put my feet on a solid path of growth.